So you think you're pretty smart? Well, you probably are, but are you maximizing all the dimensions of your intellect? The name of this talk for today is Smart Intelligence, making the most of what you have. We're going to go beyond the bounds of mental intelligence or IQ. We're all very familiar with that, but we're going to explore and unpack other forms of intelligence. And the goal for today is that you will walk out a little bit smarter than when you came in. And now, at this point, I'm going to welcome my fellow panelists to the stage. So come on out. Yes. Excellent. All right, let's have a seat. All right, so I am excited to dive into this conversation, but before we dive in, I wanted to formally introduce my panelists to everybody here. And we're going to go from opposite me with Reverend Alfreda, and we're going to work close into me with Dr. Paul. But I'm going to read a snapshot of each panelist and some of the amazing things that they have done. So starting with Reverend Alfreda. Reverend Alfreda, or Frida Lanoix, is the author of Go to Hell. And she is as irrelevant and audacious as her new book. She's fearlessly truthful and extraordinarily insightful, and she views the world through a multifaceted lens of laughter and self-examination. She recently founded the Wake the Hell Up movement, which evokes the gift of consciousness. As an international speaker, she unapologetically reveals the truth of her journey from the pulpit to the heart. Rev Freda has appeared on numerous television and radio programs and commercials as an expert on spirituality without religion. Her passion is for everyone to experience the freedom of living outside the box. Oh, I'm sorry, there actually is no box. So that is Reverend Alfreda, and actually I'm going to ask her a quick question, because this is some of the amazing things that she's done. But Rev Freda, who are you?
Oh my goodness. I am a mother of two. I'm a grandmother of four. I know I don't look like a grandmother, but I am. Grandmother of four. I am a person who loves to inspire. This is my quote. I will never tell you what to do or to think, but I be damned, I will always give you something to think about. That's who I am.
All right, Rev Freda, thank you. All right, next we have Charles Vogl. And Charles is an advisor, speaker, and the author of 3 books, including the international bestseller, The Art of Community, now in its 2nd edition. He has worked with Google in several capacities, including as a trusted thought leader for the Google School for Leaders. He holds a Master's of Divinity degree from Yale University, where he has studied spiritual traditions, philosophy, and business as a Jesse Ball DuPont Foundation scholar. That is Charles Vogl. And again, the same question, who is Charles Vogl?
Well, in addition to the academic work, I'm a father. On certain months, I'm a skier, which is to say I go fast in plastic boots. And much of my time right now is spent distilling very, very old wisdom and reintroducing it to leadership of our time so we can remember what has sustained us as a culture for generations.
Ah, excellent. That is Charles. All right. And next, I want to reintroduce you to Z. Clarke. She was the wonderful person playing the amazing melody at the very beginning. And so Z is a Harvard MBA who went from leading teams at Fortune 500 companies and startups in Silicon Valley to teaching stress management, resilience, and self-care. Trained in India, she is the author of the book, Black People Breathe, and her work has been featured in Fortune, Forbes, CNBC, and Oprah Daily. Same question, who is Z. Clarke?
Hi, everyone. I am a violinist, as you know. I am a rock climber.
Oh.
I am a yogi. And I spent a lot of my time and my career here in Silicon Valley, where often I would be the only woman in the room, the only black person in the room. And so I felt like I was constantly needing to prove myself. So I burnt the candle at both ends and experienced a burnout so severe that my doctors told me that something had to change with my stress levels. So I quit my job. I went to India, and I learned powerful holistic healing practices that made me feel better than I'd ever felt in my entire life. And breath work was the number one thing that I learned, because you can do a simple breathing practice and change how you feel immediately.
Oh, wow.
And so today, I teach stress management and resilience to companies around the world.
Wow. Yeah, exciting. We're going to get into some of that here in a little bit later. But that is Z. Clarke, everybody. All right, and finally we have Dr. Paul Zak. Dr. Paul is a distinguished university professor at Claremont Graduate University and the founder of Immersion Neuroscience, a software platform that allows anyone to measure what the brain loves in real time. And that is used to improve the outcomes in entertainment, education, advertising, and emotional health. And it's again the same question: who is Dr. Paul Zak?
I'm a service dog. So I've spent my career developing knowledge and technologies to help people live longer, happier, and healthier lives. And that means I want to be of service to others to help them be on that same journey.
Ah, the power of service. I love that. And we're going to come back to that theme here a little bit later. All right, so we ready to jump in?
Ready.
All right. Yeah, intelligence. Now, before we dive into the other forms of intelligence, I do want to give just a quick acknowledgement to mental intelligence, or intelligence quotient, or IQ. It's very important, and it's the most popular, I would say, form of intelligence, or the version of intelligence that people are usually most familiar with. But we're going to spend more time on the other forms of intelligence and really unpack those, what they mean, and how powerful they can be. All right, so we're going to start, Z, we're going to start with you. We're going to start with emotional intelligence. What is it? Why is it important?
Emotional intelligence. Wow, it is so important. Emotional intelligence is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage our own emotions, like how are we feeling right now, but also the emotions of others, to be able to recognize them and then influence the emotions of others.
Ah, okay.
And so this is important for all of us because it could impact our work productivity, right? If we're stressed, we're not going to be as focused or productive. It might impact how we inspire or motivate our teams, right? Because we're recognizing how they're feeling and what they need. It impacts your health, your physical health, because you might end up with high blood pressure if you're not paying attention to it. You might not be sleeping well. You might get sick all the time. Your immune system might be depressed, or because you're not paying attention to how you're feeling. It can impact your emotional health, right? Your mental health, because if you don't recognize how you're feeling right now, something could build up over time and suddenly you have an extreme depression or anxiety. And lastly, your relationships. Because if you're not paying attention to how you're feeling and reading the room and how other people are feeling, then you might not treat them the way they want to be treated. You might not get the outcomes that you want, both at work and at home. I mean, who here has snapped at their partner or their kids when you had a hard day, right?
Yeah, that's true. And this starts to get into some of the things we'll talk about later too, is how they're all connected. So one thing I'm gleaning from this for everybody is that when it comes to mental intelligence, you can know a lot of different things, but if the emotional intelligence is not coming along right alongside with it, it almost doesn't matter what you know, because if how you're experiencing somebody or how you're making somebody feel, that could almost negate whatever it is you're trying to tell them or say. Is that a fair
Yes,
thought?
and in fact, I want to quote Maya Angelou, who said that, I mean, I might not have it exactly, but basically people won't remember what you said or did. They remember how you made them feel.
Yeah, and one thing with this too is we all have emotions, I would say, right? Whether you agree with that or not, we all have emotions. And it's something that you can't ignore or underemphasize. You have to learn how to integrate and include your emotions with all you do, is another thing that I'm gathering from it.
Exactly, because if you ignore how you're feeling, then you might actually show up and present in a way that's unintentional, right? You might rub people the wrong way. You might not recognize what you're going through, which then is going to impact how you're behaving, and you have no idea. I mean, I think we've all been in meetings with people that are having a bad day, and they don't realize that their bad day is showing up in the room, which then impacts the team dynamics, and everybody's productivity.
Becomes contagious.
Exactly.
In the wrong way. Yeah. Any others on the panel, just when it comes to emotional intelligence, any other thoughts that may come to mind for anybody? Yeah.
Yeah, emotions are really contagious. And so if we think about evaluating our own emotions, I want to have a positive impact on people, right? Now, I can lead with fear, but that's a very short-term motivator. What we found in lots of research is leading with positive emotions, leading with love, if you will, is actually much more effective. You'll die for someone you love. But, fear, I'll do something in short term to get out of that response. So it's really about creating community around individuals who can then perform at their best, whether you're at home or at work.
Yeah. Powerful. Yeah, exactly. All right, so now we're going to move on. Actually, before we move on, I made a little note here about the idea of resilience. And Z, you touched on this a little bit, and others, you can chime in as well. When I think about the idea of resilience, I think about it as the ability to bounce back, either bounce back from something difficult, or as background from sports has been a big part of my background growing up. So being able to bounce back from a loss, but also being able to bounce back from a win. So like when things are going well, how do you learn from that, and how do you maintain a level of consistency? So I wanted to just weave in the idea of resilience here. Thoughts from anybody on that?
Yeah, working in tech, agility is so important. But you can't be agile if you don't have resilience, because the world is changing. I mean, look at what's happened in 2025, right? And so if you cannot adapt to challenges and also to uncertainty, then you're not going to be able to achieve your goals. And to me, resilience, there are two pieces to it. One, of course, it's about bouncing back, exactly as you said, but also about having a strong foundation so that when something does happen, you don't get knocked off your center. I teach a workshop called Self-Care When Time is Tight. We all have super busy days. And so things like a meeting ends at 10:27 and somebody says, I'm just going to give you a little time back. In those 3 minutes, you could choose to get in your inbox, right? Or you could do a quick stretch of your neck, or your shoulders, because we all hold stress there, or a quick breathing practice. And so there's a foundation, but then let's say something really big does happen, or you're so worried about something, then, what do you do in that moment? And that's where I strongly recommend breathing practices. I have a workshop called Managing Anxiety at Work. And what do? Who here you couldn't fall asleep because you were worried about something in your mind?
Just going.
Spiraling, right?
Yeah.
So there's a breathing practice that I teach called 4-7-8 breathing, where medical research shows that it stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system, kind of the opposite of that fight or flight, and that allows you to be calm. Curious if you're interested in doing it for like 30 seconds.
Yeah, we'll circle back and do
Okay,
that. So
great.
remind me.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, Rev.
I read a book that says we have 92,000 thoughts a day.
92,000.
92, and some of us probably have a few more. But from that very busy intersection within ourselves, we make major decisions and major choices in our lives. And so when you are bouncing back, it's not so much the bounce back as it is how do you bounce back.
Oh.
Yeah, we want to believe that everything will work itself out. But if you don't know how it's going to work itself out, in the meantime, how are you able to sustain yourself? Are you having the sleepless nights? Or do you have to, maybe start drinking? What are your habits that maybe you pick out? Or are you able to trust? And trust. And what tools do you have? Meditation, breathing. What are the tools that you have created in your toolbox in order for you to maintain in the meantime while it's working itself out?
Yeah, and that reminds me of something that I've been focusing on recently is how do you respond or how do you interact when you do not get what you want
Ooh.
or when things aren't playing out the way you expect them to. Like what happens in that gap period?
Yes.
There's a whole lot of things that could happen. Like what do you think? What do you do? How do you show up? What do you say?
Yes.
All those things there. So that just reminded me
In the meantime.
of that. Yeah.
Yes. In the meantime.
Yeah, what happens. All right, so now we're going to move on. Charles, with you, social intelligence. Just wanted to talk about what it is and why is it important?
Well, when I think about social intelligence as you're framing it, I think about how we use the wisdom of how relationships work to invest in generating those relationships so they're there on the good days and what we all know is inevitable, the bad days, the really bad days. And just as importantly, I would say even more importantly, so those relationships are there when others have the really bad days.
Oh.
That we are smart enough, committed enough, invested enough that we have those relationships in place so that together we can stand or maybe barely stand when we need to for that adaptability and that resilience, and especially now what we know is a very, very uncertain time.
Yeah. Now, one thing I'm picking up on this, Charles, is that there's like a two-way dimension to this. So like, as an example for everybody here, like all of you are not here just to serve me. I should give and contribute as well. It should be a mutual exchange of connection, value, relationship. That's helps to weave the fabric, if you will, when it comes to trust.
Yeah, well, Larry, I think very few of us, both on the stage and in our communities, want to know more people who have a relationship with us just to get stuff from us.
An extraction
Right.
situation.
So if I were to advocate or we were to teach that the best way to build relationships is figure out who can we get stuff from and spend time with them and get it, we just become jerks. And I think we all know exactly how much we want to stand up, put ourselves at risk, lose some sleep to help jerks on their bad days. And so if we really have social intelligence, we fundamentally approach that commitment with generosity.
Oh. And a mutual exchange of value, connection.
Ideally a mutual exchange, Larry, and maybe, if we're really good at it, a lot of generosity.
A lot of generosity.
And it starts with that investment in the relationship, right? I'm not going to be friends with Z unless I do something that, hey, she's awesome, I want to hang out with her. So it requires that someone initiate that investment, and most people reciprocate. If they don't reciprocate, it's like dinner, right? If I invite Larry to dinner 5 times, you never invite me back, well, you're not really a friend, right? So, but you've got to initiate that. And when we think about, like in the olden days, the 7 deadly sins, those are really about selfishness. But community, social intelligence is about virtue, about giving to others. And once we give to others, we often get that in return manyfold.
Life is truly an exchange system, and I really believe that we all bring something to the table. And if you're sitting at a table that no one is bringing anything, then that's the wrong table.
I also, when you talked about investment, though, it requires prioritization because we're all so busy. So, you know, you talked about on the bad days versus the good days. Well, a lot of times we're just so busy, we don't have time to have the lunches or the coffees or reach out. And the next thing you know, 6 months has gone by. And so I love this reminder to really focus on that because that's what's really important.
Yeah. Now, and actually with that, Z, I would assume that with the prioritization, there can be a tension that can come into play with, well, how do you? Like, I really want to invite you back over to dinner, but I'm just too busy. But you can invite me back over. You know? So that's selfishness. That's what that is right there. But like, how do we navigate the tension?
Well, let me speak to that, Larry.
Yeah.
You know, I think that if you don't have time to spend time with the people you want to spend time with, then my guess is you're thinking too big. Walking around a Google campus counts. Grabbing coffee and sitting next to a lake counts. Now, knowing you, it's probably more sophisticated than that. There might be noodles involved, right? But if what you have time for to spend the time with the people you want to spend time with is a walk around a lake for 20 minutes, that counts. And I'm a firm believer that we each have, to my last count, about 50 weeks a year. Am I right about that? If we're not spending an hour of that week, every week, with people we want to know better, who we already know or want to know, then we're not investing in the part of our lives that's going to make our lives work on both the really good days and the really bad days.
But I agree with Z. There's got to be a prioritization. So one of the great management gurus of the 20th century, Peter Drucker, advocated that every individual and every organization have a do not do list. Write down, prioritize the stuff that you're doing every year, knock out the bottom 2/3, right? And so what I've done is really be very clear about saying no to lots of things that seem like they're fun, but aren't really valuable enough to, for example, invest in relationships. So making time to invest in those relationships. By the way, as a card-carrying introvert, I can spend 12 hours alone and not talk to anybody, but I realize that's not effective in terms of thriving. It's not effective as a leader, right? So you've got to actually invest in those relationships by saying no to other things.
Yeah, because I guess with this, I just think about time. Time is always a depleting resource, is how I think about it. We all have the same amount of time. How we use our time is the kicker, is the idea with that. Yeah. Charles, one thing I wanted to circle back with you is wrote down here the power of community, and just getting your thoughts on that.
Well, we've touched on it, Larry. So I define community in my work as a group of people who share mutual concern for one another. I don't care if you work at the same company. I don't care if you wear the same clothes. I don't care if you like the same bands. You might. I don't care. All I care about is after you've spent time together, are you leaving, perceiving, hopefully accurately, that other people care about you? And as we've already touched on, there's reciprocity there. And in my experience, everybody has really, really, really bad days, like hospital days, like wonder if the kids are going to make it days. And the power of community is we don't handle that alone. And a couple times in this conversation already, we've talked about being overwhelmed. That's how I'm interpreting it. By overwhelmed with time, being overwhelmed with health challenges, being overwhelmed with the changes of life. In my experience, all of us who have a story of just making it or crossing through that day where we didn't know if we would make it, we did it because somebody else came to the plate. Maybe it was small, maybe it was giant, but there was somebody else. And I'm old enough now to know when I'm in a place where I don't know if I'm going to make it or I can't handle it, whatever it is, that's usually a sign I'm not asking for help or I'm not asking for enough help. And here's what's critical now that I've learned that. I want to make sure there's somebody asked for help. And if I haven't invested in developing those relationships, maybe eating noodles with Larry by a lake, then I don't have Larry to call upon. And that's community intelligence.
And it's important that you have the right community. I've, been a community leader for quite some time, and I know the community that I came from, which was the Black, gay, and lesbian and trans community, that our common denominator, we were attracted to each other because of our pain and our rejection.
Oh, life experience.
Yes, that brought us together. And the thing about that is that if I've been rejected, I know how to reject you. Hurt people hurt people. And so it's very important as you develop this community. I know, like someone mentioned about the times, like what we're going through now, what has been important is not so much as the community, and maybe this is just another way of looking at it, but the village. Like, who's in my village? And making it important that we don't isolate and that we do have that exchange and that trust with each other. So you got to really be mindful of the community you are in, and will it serve you, and are you able to serve it back? Because sometimes if it's connected because of the pain, you just kind of bounce back.
There's no growth or development that
It's
won't
just
happen.
it's just victimhood, and so I can tell you about my pain, and I know how to. Let me tell you this real quick story. It was an organization that I came to work for, and it was an organization that was founded by a Black woman, and everyone that worked there, it was all Black women, and it was the most toxic environment I had ever been in. And I thought, oh my God, this is going to be so good. Everybody's Black, everybody's a woman. We know our pain, we know what we've been through, we know the struggle. And yes, they did, but they had not evolved, they had not released, they had not let go. And so it was just a very toxic relationship. And the people that we served, we were not even able to serve them to the best of our means because of our own pain that was involved. So
Yeah.
be mindful of the community that you create or that you become a part of.
Wow. Be careful of the company you keep. Is how I think about that. Yeah. And actually, to piggyback onto that point, Rev, I'm thinking back to my sports days. Used to play college basketball. And before college, played high school basketball, an amazing time. But once you go from high school to college, it's a totally different situation. And so you're like in the room with a bunch of other people that are just like you. They were just as good or just as great in their respective high schools. And now you're all in the same room and you got to figure it out. Who's better in this group? And so when you're around like-minded people that are like pushing your skills in a healthy way, it does create like a spiral up situation. And a lot of life lessons came out of that. That's like over 30 years ago, which is amazing. All right, now we're going to move on to Rev with spiritual
Ooh,
intelligence.
yes, to be spiritually
Spiritual intelligence.
intelligent. This is so exciting to me because the thing about spirituality, and it's so weird that you quoted Maya Angelou because I have a quote from her too. This says, "The tools to manage the difficulties of life are within." And so spiritual intelligence is about developing the tools that you need to be able to go within. What does that mean? Like I sometimes tell people you have to choose yourself, and they have no clue of what I'm saying. Like, what are you talking about, Reb? How can I choose myself? What is that all about? Because we have been so conditioned and so trained and to give. It's all about what we give. It's all about what we give. And especially, as women, we are caretakers, but we don't necessarily have we learned how to take care. And so when I'm listening to the panel and we're all talking about the time and we don't have time, if you don't go within, you go without. Because within is your foundation. And if, no matter what I do, if I cannot stand and look in the mirror and say to myself, was I brave enough to be true to myself? Was I brave enough to stand on my own truth? And if not, what are some of the things that I need to do spiritually in order to build my foundation that when I stand on what it is that I believe? Am I brave? Am I able to be able to navigate? Because we all have stories. We all come with a story. Whether your story is abandonment, whether your story is, oh, I had great parents, whether you were born through a love affair, it doesn't matter. When you deal with spirituality, when you start looking at what does it take for me to know my value of who I am, we're driven. We're all driven. Like, let's get the degree. Let's get the job. Let's get the title. But what's driving you? And a lot of times, we don't know what's driving us. And if you don't know what's driving you, you don't know where you're going. And how you know that you're spiritually out of balance is that even though you have accomplishments and you have all these things that you've accomplished, but how do they serve you? Are you content? Do you take the time to appreciate yourself? Like, I remember my daughter, she was graduating from UC Irvine, and we were just excited. Oh my goodness, she's did it. And of course, I'm feeling proud as a mother, and we've made it from the ghetto or wherever we came from, right? And she says, "I'm not gonna walk," and I was like, "What? What do you mean? You're not taking my glory from me." Oh, and then she said, "But why walk? Because I'm still in school. I'm still going to get my PhD." And I said, no. She was an overachiever. And when you are an overachiever, you're being driven. But it doesn't mean that it's necessarily it's serving you. It's not bringing you the contentment, the joy, the peace. And if you're not getting that, you are spiritually out of balance.
Wow. So understanding and being in touch with the essence of who you are.
Your authentic self.
Spiritual intelligence.
Got to be intelligent and to recognize it. The first step is to recognize, am I out of balance? You know, because I've accomplished this. Did it bring me the joy, the success, the insight that I thought it would? Am I content? Or am I on to the next thing? I used to buy a new car, and I promise you, as soon as I drove that car off the lot, I was like, I'm over this. You know, I'm over this. Or I would be in a relationship. After the 6th year, that was my thing. I'm over this. But what I didn't realize is that it was not the external things. It was not the things that I was accomplishing. It was the internal. I was not content with who I was within myself, because somewhere along the line, somebody told me being black was not good. Somebody told me being a woman, I got to do more and expect less. Somebody told me being lesbian was wrong. So when you have all that internally, then it's very hard for you to externally enjoy this thing called life. So spiritually, being intelligent spiritually means I now recognize that I need to take the steps that I need to take in order to heal myself from within. I need to maybe go back to the first time my mother said that I was no good because of her own pain, her own shortcomings. I need to maybe heal from that, get that voice out of my head, replace that voice with meditation. I need to know, and see, a lot of times we're on automatic pilot. We don't even think. We get up
things over
every
and over.
morning. We do the same thing, same routine, same coffee. We drive the same way. We're on automatic pilot. When you are spiritually intelligent, you stop.
Slow down.
You slow down. I'm telling you, if you don't slow down, you crash and you burn. Just like even coming up here. People fly. I said, no, I'm going to take the train.
Wow.
I take the train. I like the chuk. But it gives me time to be with myself.
present.
Because, see, a lot of us, we don't like ourselves. And if you don't like yourself, you're not going to be with yourself. Now, you can love yourself, and there's a difference between love and like. Love is unconditional. I can love you, but when I like you,
It's true.
that means I want to do these little special things for you, right?
Yeah.
And so with spiritual intelligence, as I begin to like myself, as I begin to go into meditation, as I begin to look at my thoughts, see, meditation allows you to look at the way you're thinking without judgment, though. To say, oh, I can't believe, did I do that again? Insanity is continue doing the same thing and expecting something different.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? But you don't know that until you take the time to be with yourself. So that's what spiritual intelligence is all about. Everything else is based off of you spiritually being able to accept who you are.
Wow. Yeah. Any others on the panel? Any thoughts from this on that?
I maybe I have a question for you. A lot of people, when they hear the word spirituality, they think religion.
Yeah, so we're
And
going to go
I heard
next.
from
but
your
yeah.
bio that you're like without religion. So just can you speak a little bit to how does religion and spirituality fit?
They do. Okay, so I am definitely a reverend. And the thing about religion is that religion comes with rules and regulations, right? Religion, it tells you that this is what you need to do in order to be. Spirituality is like wherever you are, I am. Spirituality allows you to connect to the source, which I feel is never dry. Like, it's just so many ways to get to New York. You might fly to New York, you might drive to New York, and I might take the train to New York. But the bottom line is what? Getting to New York. So it is up to you to actually examine. I believe nothing is wrong. It has to do with what works for you. How you evolve, your life experiences. Because where I came from versus where you came from, it takes a different journey, a different set of rules for your journey versus for my journey. And so spirituality for me is what governs your spirit. Because if your spirit is dead, it doesn't matter any of these other things or any of these other accomplishments. If your spirit is dead. And so to me, that's the difference between having religion. I have nothing against that, whether you're Buddhist, whether you are atheist, whether you Allah, whatever it takes. But spirituality is not caught up in that. It's like, however you call me, I will answer.
Yeah. So they can seem the same, but
Yes.
different at the same time.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead, Z.
I love that. And what came to mind as you were speaking was the concept of values.
Yes.
A lot of us have heard of extrinsic values versus intrinsic values,
Yes.
right? And so it's like, what do other people think versus what do I think? And it sounds like what you're saying is pay attention to what I think, and ethics comes in here, right?
Exactly.
I have worked in organizations and with people that wanted to act unethically,
Yeah.
right? And so then the question back to your values, which comes back to your spirit,
Yes.
and what helps you to sleep
Yes.
at night is
Yes.
what do you do or say? Do you say something? If it's your boss, if
Yes.
it's somebody that has a higher title.
Yes.
And that's for me, when you were speaking, I was like, ooh, I've been in situations at
Yes.
work
Yeah.
where how you define spirituality comes in.
I hate being a coward. You know, but I don't judge myself because sometimes we are. Like sometimes
We're
I
all
can
human,
stand
yeah.
on, yeah,
Yeah.
I can stand on, and that's the beauty to me of spirituality. It never judges you. It's like wherever you are, you know, it's like I can remember standing up. I used to be the pastor of this church, and I can remember standing up in the pulpit and just, you know, hundreds of people, and this little voice inside. And that's the thing about spirituality too. It connects you to your intuition. And there's a difference between your intuition and your ego.
True.
Your ego is all about being accepted, being liked. I hope they like me. Oh my God, I hope I say that. But your intuition is about trusting what your soul feels. And it might mean you might be standing on the wrong side of the track. And it might mean you might be standing by yourself. But at the end of the day, there's nothing that feels better than when you are able to look at yourself and say, damn it, I stood my ground, you know.
You did it. You
And
were you.
it's almost like, you know, like when I came out, and I came from a very religious background. My mother was a national pastor, evangelist of a Pentecostal church. You can't get no more dogmated than that. And I was gay, and I was like, and
Yeah.
I was married, and I had 2 children, and I was like, oh my God, if I stand on my truth, this is going to really hurt so many people. But what I recognized, if I don't stand on my truth, I was suicidal. I was suicidal. And I said, was this worth taking me from those that I love, which are my children? And so it took everything I had. But of course, today, I'm gay and happy, of course.
Wow. Powerful, powerful. Excellent. Thank you. Dr. Paul, now we're going to move over to you. Physical intelligence or body intelligence, what is it? Why is it important?
So great that you brought this in, Larry. A lot of the conversation here is about really getting to know yourself and making good choices. You know, the old days had these movies where there'd be like this disembodied head in a jar of liquid, and it would be super intelligent.
Yeah.
It's never going to work because the way that we learn about ourselves and the world we're in is physically. We
Yeah.
need to physically interact with objects and with people, and that's where that community comes in. So we look at the 5 pillars of thriving. It's really diet, exercise, sleep, having a rich social life, and having a sense of purpose and acting on it. I could call that spiritual intelligence. I'm okay with that. So of these 5 pillars, the first 3 are just kind of maintenance for the body. Diet, exercise, sleep, we all know that. Essentially, you need to have it. It's important. But if you look at research out of Oxford University in the last year, 50% of people's happiness is due to the quality of their social relationships. Great. What does that mean? Because of the contagion effect, right? I'm choosing who to be around. What's quality mean? How many people are in your phone? Obviously not, right? So the work we've done is identifying how the brain values social emotional experiences, and each of those is specific to you. What's valuable to you is different than what's valuable to me. It's different than what's valuable to Z. And so by having technology that lets us make those better choices and learn about our own unconscious emotional states,
Oh, wow.
we are physically in the world. We're building up that physical intelligence. I call this emotional fitness. Right? We want to be emotionally fit, just like we want to be spiritually fit. We want to be socially fit. We want to be stress-free or lower stress at least, if not stress-free.
True.
And so we have to be engaged in the world. And so people who are thriving are making good choices about community. They're in touch with their spiritual purpose, and they're able to give to others, to be really great members of community, and that community could be your family, it could be your work folks, it could be the people you play basketball with, but you've got to give, right? If I'm playing basketball with you, and every time I get the ball I shoot, I never pass, you don't want to play with me,
Switch
right?
teams.
Right, exactly right. You're off the team. So I think that kind of give and take and knowing what's most valuable to you in that do not do list. Oh, here's my 5 things I've got to do. This is what really helps me thrive. Again, for me, a lot of it is giving to others, but also understanding that to give, I've got to say no to lots of those things, as I said.
Best enables you. And so to summarize that really quickly, Dr. Paul, so just how we show up, that's how I'm thinking about this, like literally, especially when you're in the same room together, like the first thing we did when we met, we shook hands. That was a physical interaction and how we do that. And then, again, the fundamentals, so taking care of your body, eating right, exercise, sleep, the fundamentals. We won't spend a ton more time on that, but it's extremely important because that enables you to do all of these other things. One thing I tell people sometimes is it all starts and ends with your health.
Yes.
And so being able to consistently take care of yourself, that helps to enable all those other things. But additional thoughts from anybody?
I was gonna say, this is like the thing on the airplane. Put on your oxygen mask before you help someone else. So
true.
You've got to take care of yourself first, physically, emotionally, and spiritually, and then you can really thrive, right? If one of those things is missing, you're not a very effective human being. You're going to be shriveling. You're going to be kind of isolated. And sometimes because we're so busy, as he said, we do that. It all becomes about me. So again, now I'm in the 7 deadly sins world. I'm about, I'm so important that I have to have things my way or else nothing else. Actually not. I'm not that important. You're not that important. We're all equally important. Right?
Yeah.
We're not more important or less important.
Yeah, at a minimum, there's having an acknowledgement of things beyond yourself.
Well said.
There's other things out there. It doesn't, not just all about yourself. Excellent. Yeah, and so the last thing we'll do, go ahead, Z.
I wanted to just have a different perspective on body intelligence.
Yeah.
There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. Basically, things that happen in our environment, whether it's stress, something bad happens, you don't have community, you don't feel good within yourself, that shows up in the body.
Oh,
and so, they say the issues are in the tissues. Something happens and you feel that that rock in your throat, or like you got punched in the gut, or your shoulders tense up, right? Like paying attention to that, paying attention to your body can actually tell you about your emotions and about your spirituality and maybe even about community, because sometimes lack of community shows up in the body.
Yeah. Now, that's
There's
beautiful
another
thing.
book
Go ahead.
too,
Yep.
Louise Hay, that says you can heal your body, and she says that like cancer comes from when you don't necessarily take care of yourself emotionally, mentally, and spiritually, then it shows up physically in your body.
Disease, dis-ease.
But at the same time, our brains are so adaptable, our body's adaptable. So it's really listening to ourselves, using all the tools we have available, which are many, to learn about ourselves and make those better choices so that we are investing in ourselves first so we can invest in others.
Yeah. Now, Z, I love what you shared here. The thing that my mind immediately went to was a situation, and for those that are in the room that are watching, maybe you've been in a meeting or in a one-on-one meeting with somebody important, whoever it is, and you're talking to this person, or the content of whatever it is you're talking about, or whoever it is you're talking to, you start to get nervous. Or if somebody asks you a question and you don't really know what it is, or somebody asks you a question and you should know what the answer is, but you forgot, or the answer is different than what you want to say, and so now should I say something else or tell the truth? So all these things are happening and you get knots in your stomach, your voice gets kind of cracky, your heart starts beating fast. That's your body sending you a signal of something that's going on in the moment. You probably could check the mental intelligence side, perhaps, the emotional side, the social side. How we show up is literally the first signal with how we interact and deal with things, or how we're experiencing things in the moment. So,
But think how easy it is to fix that. So you're stressed, I just give you that, right? Oh, the whole world just changed, right? Physiologically, I said, I'm here for you. Okay, right? So really, we have to be here for each other. So we talked before we went on, Larry, about showing up at work. Man, it's nice to work at home in stretchy pants. Nothing better than that. But We need the social interaction. If we don't have that, those skills degrade. I forget to reach out to the people around me. And so I do think it's important that we show up at work, at school, at the gym, whatever we're doing. Being alone is just not healthy for social creatures like human beings. And we see degradation in brain activity when people are isolated.
Oh, wow. That's
When
powerful.
you get caught up in your own head.
There you go. Absolutely.
Yeah. Excellent. Yeah. So the last thing we'll do here to wrap up, and actually we can go to the next slide. I wanted to just highlight and showcase some of the amazing resources that all of our panelists have here. So for those that are in the room and those that are watching virtually, go ahead and check out those QR codes because it's a number of different resources, different books and different techniques. We've actually touched on, I think, just about all of them. Z, I am going to come back to you because I wanted to demonstrate the breathing techniques piece. But before we do, Dr. Paul, with the emotional fitness app, I wanted to just give you chances to share a little bit more about that.
Sure. So very quickly, it's an app that pulls data from smartwatches and fitness wearables and identifies every second if you're getting enough value from the experiences you're having. There's a social emotional value. Links to your calendar and your location. It says, here's the stuff that your brain loves. Do more of that.
Oh, wow.
Here's the people to be around for community, like Charles. Here's my purpose activities, like Rev said. And so by having this free app, it's called Six. You can use it for free. You get to learn about yourself physically, but also emotionally, right? Because they're all related, as you said.
Yeah, they're all connected. So let me repeat that back to you, make sure people got this. So if it's through a wearable, and so it's tracking the arc of your day and how you're doing up, down, sideways throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, I can just look back and take a look at the results. And then from there, I can learn from it.
Right, so people who thrive are passionate. This is capturing that passion. Not that the stress isn't important, but I've got to be excited about life. And we've shown you need 6 of these high value moments per day to really thrive. That's why the app is called Six.
Oh, okay.
And so what are those things? Again, yours is going to be different than mine, right? And so like learning about yourself, here are the things I do that are most valuable. Hint, they're almost always social activities.
Hint, hint.
We need other people.
Yeah. Now, does it matter if you're an introvert or an extrovert when it comes to that?
Great question. Actually, it doesn't matter if you're introvert or extrovert, but it does matter for people who are more agreeable and who are more empathic. They tend to have more high-value moments. They're more emotionally open, and that's really important. We like to be around people who are emotionally open, who are showing that they care about us, that are excited about the world. But because the brain's so adaptable, if we have this information, we can induce what's called neuroplasticity. We can be better social creatures. We can be more in tune with ourselves and what we need to really thrive.
Yeah. Excellent. Excellent.
Love it.
Yeah. So to wrap up here, and we've actually naturally talked about this throughout, all these different dimensions of intelligence are all interconnected. There's a holistic dimension, and I'll just say the better you are at being able to be aware of the different dimensions of your intelligence and being able to weave those into each other as you experience your day and as you interact with other people, to me, I believe that gives you the best chance to show up in the best way possible consistently. But any final thoughts with that from anybody?
Well, the power of spiritual intelligence, I cannot emphasize it enough. It's so powerful because until you can get in touch with yourself, until you can really create the tools to release, maybe you might need to forgive yourself for some things. You might, need to embrace yourself, give yourself some grace, because we are so judgmental and we're very hard on ourselves. I can't believe I did that. I can't believe I married that. Okay, yeah. But with spiritual intelligence, it allows you to transcend. It allows you to be able to release and let go. It allows you, again, to get in touch with your intuition. It says that your intuition is talking all the time. The question becomes, who's listening? And most of the time, we're not listening because we're in our own head and we're just analyzing. So spiritual intelligence is that tool, that avenue that will allow you to reach within your soul, your purpose of who you are, and so that you can actually create the life that you choose to live. I tell people all the time, wherever you are is where you've chosen to be, whether you're conscious of it or not. And most of us live unconsciously.
Wow. Any other final thoughts from the panel?
I think about rules. I'm sorry, Charles. You know, I'm a scientist, so I'm always into math and rules.
Okay,
And
yep.
I think, how do I put that into practice? And I think, so I'm going to give you my preview of that, which is I have a simple rule, which I call the Love Plus rule. I want to try to make sure that for every interaction I have, I'm adding love to the world, not subtracting love.
Oh,
And so when I reflect at night before I go to sleep, did I actually add love to the world today? Did I engage in the Love Plus program? Right. So if I think about that, I'm thinking about, again, being in service, investing in relationships, or sometimes saying no. I'm not going to do this because I have things that need my attention that are more important. And so that's a real simple rule, right? Am I adding love to the world?
Oh, I love it. I love that. Yeah. Charles, thoughts?
Well, the thought I wanted to put in the space before we sign off is we haven't talked about fun. And, you know, Paul rightfully so mentioned being an introvert and wanting to be at home. We all know also that Paul and other introverts have fun with other people. And we can make this a really intellectual gymnastic type conversation about social health and other kinds of health and intelligence. If it's not fun, it's not fun.
True.
And all of us have created relationships that matter, that got us through the really important times. We had fun. I just want to put that in the space before we end this conversation.
Bravo, Charles.
Excellent.
had
I
fun
appreciate
being here
that.
with you guys. Fun. This
Yeah.
is fun.
I have one quick final thought, which is a mantra that I love, which is, you know, you were talking about choice earlier. It's today I choose me. And so often we are prioritizing work, our family, our friends, all these responsibilities. But today I choose me, to me, means pay attention to your spirit, pay attention to community, pay attention to your emotions, pay attention to your body and your brain and how things are landing. And once you pay attention, then act and adapt based on what it is that you need.
Wow. Excellent. All right. So before we actually close out, see, I did want to give it back to you for the breathing practice. You want to just demonstrate that, and then we can.
Okay, great. Well, I wanted to share a breathing practice that is helpful for when you are anxious.
Okay.
When you can't fall asleep because you're worried, or when your brain is just like that, and it's on, and you're worried about something, you're anxious, right? So it's called 4-7-8 breathing. You inhale for a count of 4, you hold your breath for a count of 7, and you exhale for a count of 8. So let's just do 2 rounds of it right now, just real quick, so folks here can experience it. So I invite you to sit up straight, shoulders back and down, so you can get your full lung capacity. We're going to breathe in and out through the nose, and let's go. Inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold your breath for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Again, in for 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And relax. And allow the breath to be natural. Now, research says if you do this for 2 minutes, that stimulates your parasympathetic nervous system. You can do this while lying in bed when you can't fall asleep. So that was the quick version, and I was also counting pretty fast. I want to point that out because for those that have never done this before, the counting fast, it's like easier, but as you have more practice, it's actually best to count slowly, maybe 1 second per count.
Excellent.
How y'all feel?
I feel great. This was excellent. I hope everybody down that was watching and in the room was able to practice that. Take that one with you, as well as all the amazing things that was shared here today. So I wanted to close out by saying thank you to our amazing panel, to Reverend Alfreda, Charles, Z, Dr. Paul. Thank you again just for an amazing time. It goes beyond mental intelligence. There's other dimensions. I know I came out of this conversation a little bit smarter than when I came in. I hope you did too. Thank you so much.